Daily News. A giant voice, Big Blue kicker and legendary announcer Summerall dead at 82. Well, he will be missed. We're pleased now to welcome in broadcaster Joe Buck as he joins NFL AM. Good morning to you, Joe. What was your reaction when you learned of Pat Summerall's passing?
Well, I was sad. I mean, I got to know him well over the years, and I know him first as a really good friend of my father's who was in the booth with Pat for a lot of those great moments when they were calling games on the radio together. And so immediately my thoughts go to this, as the commissioner said, as you said in your intro, this unassuming, almost regal voice that, you know, in this day and age where everybody's trying to grab the spotlight and throw it on themselves, he didn't want it. He didn't need it. He played the game. He said so much with so few words and just had that sound to his voice that when you heard it on your television, you knew you were watching the big game. And that's what all of us strive to make happen, and all of us fall short. I think he's the best to ever do it on television, and was part of the best booth in the history of television sports with, obviously, he and John Madden.
Joe, I'm sure you have plenty of stories to tell about Pat. If you could just share a memory or a story, that would be great.
Well, I mean, there are a couple that come to mind. First of all, I did a banquet for him the last time we had a Super Bowl. It was in Dallas, and he had a banquet every year. I'm sure it'll continue for St. Jude Children's Hospital, where they honor people in the broadcasting business prior to the Super Bowl. And I emceed it, and it was right before the Super Bowl. I don't think it was the day before. I think it was 2 days before the Super Bowl. And he was appreciative that I was there, and I was honored that he even asked. And he came up at the end and presented me with a watch that my dad had given him back in the 60s when they were partners on television broadcasting games for the Cowboys. And it was special that my dad gave it to Pat back in the 60s, and he turned around and knew how close my father and I were and gave it to me. And I wear it. I've had it refurbished and put back together, and it's something that I treasure, that he still had it, and that he thought enough and knew how much that would mean to me, meant the world. But I think what stands out to me is how he got his life back together. I mean, the demons and the lows, people know about those and know about his battle with alcoholism, and he was very upfront about it. But how he got it all back together and had this amazing partnership with his wife, Cherry. They were dynamic together, and he spread the word about alcoholism and about his own issues, and I think made a difference in a lot of people's lives over the years. He just was a wonderful, sweet, fun, smart, funny man that they just don't come like him anymore, and it's too bad.
Joe, Mark Kriegel, is there a difference between a football voice and a baseball voice, and also as far as cadence, is there a difference?
Yeah, I think, the real great ones can do it. I think radio pops to mind, on that. The real great radio baseball play-by-play guys, the real great football radio play-by-play guys. Football's tough to do on the radio. On TV, you can pick your spots, and so the cadence is a little bit different. And cadence with him was so different than everybody else. He just had, because of his voice, because of that presence, and it wasn't just football. I mean, it was golf, it was tennis. He was a sportsman too, and obviously an ex-NFL player. But he had such a rhythm to his voice and had the perfect timing to what he did. And it's what we all should strive for. I know I try to say a lot with the least amount of words. And I think we all get that from Pat Summerall. But he had the right time to jump into the action and to accent what we were watching on television. It wasn't about him. He'd already played it. He knew it. He'd seen it all. He just wanted to accent what we were saying and set up John. And that's why I consider him the best ever to do it on television.
To that point, there is a regal and understated quality to his voice. Would Fox have been able to have the instant credibility it had in football without the sound of Pat Summerall's voice?
I'm so glad he brought that up. When Fox got the contract, I remember I was doing local radio in St. Louis, and I was part of the loud masses that thought the world was ending, that A, CBS wasn't going to be in it anymore, and B, this upstart network Fox that had Homer Simpson and Joan Rivers, and that's about it, was going to cover the NFL. And it was mind-boggling to think that was even a possibility. And what Fox did brilliantly with David Hill and Ed Goren and obviously with Rupert Murdoch at the top, they said they bought instant credibility by hiring Pat and John. And, back then you can pull the articles up, but it just quieted the noise. And it made Fox a legitimate player in the NFL broadcasting business. And I can tell, I got hired back in '94, and I was one of a bunch of kids that got hired. I was 24 that year, and they hired me. They hired Tom Brenneman, Marty Brenneman's kid. They hired Kenny Albert, Marv Albert's kid, all these sons of broadcasters. But we all fell in line behind the greatest to ever do it, and that's exactly what they did. They bought credibility, and it worked. And that noise went away the second those two guys signed.
All right, Joe, before we let you go, the schedule releases tomorrow. So is there any game in particular that you're looking forward to?
I don't know. I'm not smart enough to know how they put the schedule together. I'm glad to know that they're finally releasing it, and I can plan out the rest of my calendar year and kind of figure out where we're going to go. But the beauty of our schedule and the schedule in the NFL, when the baseball schedule comes out, I know what games I'm going to do in August. I can look at it and go, well, that's obviously Yankees, Red Sox. I'm not going to not do that. In the NFL, who knows? I mean, who knows what the great games are going to be the second half of the year, and that's the fun of it. Every week's so big that when the schedule comes out tomorrow, what you think will be the great game may not be. And that's why the flex schedule came in and everything else. So I look at the overall picture of it. I look at a lot of the NFC East games, and I know I'm going to be there a lot of Cowboys. But as far as the individual matchups, no idea. And I love that going into every season.
Joe, that's way too politically correct of you. That's a true broadcaster.
NFL Network, isn't it? What do you want?
Not playing favorites here on NFL AM. Joe Buck, thank you so much for taking the time to join us this morning.
Anytime. Thanks, guys.
All right, well, coming up Monday night, Jacoby Jones razzled and dazzled.